So before we get started, we have a guest from Sober Active Scranton who's here. We're doing this event on a Sunday. We usually do them on Saturdays, but we did it on Sunday. So I asked him if he would be kind enough to lead us all in just a short prayer of focusing on gratitude. And he said he would. So would you, Joseph, would you do me a favor and hop up and lead us in that short prayer? Everybody help me welcome him up. He's nervous. Yeah.
Everyone bow your heads. God, we're appreciative that you're here in our presence, that you're so holy, so great, and so understanding of our situations, and you guide us through everything. That give us the help of seeking you, so we may find your glory, so you may always be there with us through every situation. Even at our worst, you were still there with us, and at our greatest, you're there also. So we're just so thankful that you're here with us, always and forever.
Amen. Thank you, Joseph. All right. So listen, I want to thank everybody for coming to join us on this Sunday and participating in the workout and the meditation that took place before. I want to thank again David Barton, who is the owner of Gym U, who's here on the panel with us. He has just been he's an icon. He's the man who came up with Look Better Naked and has been helping people look better naked and look better naked sober as well for decades. And here's the key to the sober active movement. You can look fucking sexy and you can look better naked when you're sober because you're not eating all the comfort foods and drinking all the alcohol. That's, calorie rich and nutrient deficient. So
I must say, when you're not sober, other people may look sexier. Absolutely.
So that's a whole nother panel on how to look sexy. Sober is sexy. So thank you, David, because without you, none of this is possible. We appreciate that.
Tom, man, he's the man.
And Raheen Brown, who is my right-hand guy in New York City. Thank you, Raheen. And all right, so I just want to introduce the panel for purposes of the video so that everybody watching from home knows who everybody is. We've already done that before, but let's do it again. So Alex Talbot is the founder of Sober Active Canada and the head coach of Sober Active Canada. She's also an IDFA figure pro and competed in the Ms. Canada bodybuilding competition.
National IFBB Pro Corey.
Thank you.
I would have thought being Masters 45 and over would have given me an advantage, but it was the class with the most women.
And she's now in Calgary, and she's starting what she hopes and will be the first holistic wellness center in the country of Canada for people in recovery.
Recovery-based holistic health.
Yeah. And she's in a process of becoming a NASM certified personal trainer. Thank you for coming all the way from Calgary to be here today. Daniel Malpica led us on the meditation earlier today. He's born and raised in New York City. He's a physical therapist, and he has been for many, many years. He owns a cafe in the Hudson Valley, right outside of New York City now. He's competed up until he had an injury in men's physique competitions, and he's very proud to celebrate 13 years sober. So, Daniel, thank you for coming. Alex, how many years sober are you?
I just hit 8 years clean and sober. And I'm 1 month, 2 weeks sober too.
Yeah.
I'm still living my last life.
All right, so next to me is Danny Duran. Welcome, Danny.
Thank you.
All right. Danny is a co-founder of Sober Active Scranton, which is based out of, and shout out to the Recovery Bank and its executive director, Frank, up in Scranton, Pennsylvania. He's been sober for 9 years. And his passion in recovery is integrating exercise and nutrition and the sober active movement into his recovery. And so thank you so much for coming down to share about what you're doing up in Scranton. All right. Next to me, IFBB Fitness Pro Card holder, Corey Brueckner from New Jersey.
Thanks.
Now, if you saw her photos, if you saw the ads for this event, you're going, holy shit. But she's great. She's a trainer and she is a general manager. She's general manager of Lifetime Gym in Hackensack, New Jersey. She's also a trainer there. She had a competition yesterday. It was a trail running competition.
Trail half marathon, my first one.
Yes.
How'd it go?
No broken ankles.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
And
Tree roots and rocks are.
And she's celebrating 13 years sober. And so welcome, Corey. It's
Thanks
great
so much
to
for
have
having
you as
me.
well. So what I was hoping we could do is just do a general panel. I'm Tom Shanahan. I'm a co-founder of Sober Active NYC. I wrote a book called Spiritual Adrenaline, which integrates exercise and nutrition into the 12 steps of recovery. If you haven't read it, I would hope that you would. David wrote the foreword for my book. Alex is in the book as well as an inspiration. And, you know, I just hope you pick it up and check it out, because from the very beginning of the 12 steps, they were integrating nutrition into, and watching what early members were eating for the purposes of trying to ascertain what foods help people stay sober and what help foods led people to relapse. Bill Wilson had what he called the 6 sister foods to alcohol, which he recommend all alcoholics avoid, which are all, like white potatoes, white rice, French fries, all these foods that are calorie rich but nutrient deficient and mimic alcohol in the brain. And so in the book, I go through the whole history. And I say this because sometimes people will say, these are outside issues in recovery, but you know, the head is connected to the body, and if the body's not in good health, no matter how hard you try, the brain's not able to really overcome the challenge of breaking free of the cycle of addiction. So I guess we just want to have an informal discussion about, everyone here has many years of sobriety, and what is it about, let's start with Alex, what is it about exercise and nutrition and, you know, working out that has impacted your recovery?
Well, I think if I start looking at it, and this is what I was saying earlier, you know, and I started in obviously the traditional rooms. I am a hardcore, notorious 12-stepper in various fellowships. That's a given. But if you're telling me I have a mental obsession, a physical compulsion, and a spiritual malady, I have to attack those 3 on a daily basis. You know, for me, my daily reprieve is not only contingent upon my spiritual maintenance, but is equally contingent upon my physical and mental maintenance, conditioning, and fitness today, right? The moment I realized that my spiritual game played into my physical and mental game is the moment that the game actually fucking changed for me, you know, in so many respects. And so I can't escape the fact, you know, if I have a mental obsession, a physical compulsion, and a spiritual malady, I cannot escape the fact that I have to attack those 3 on a daily basis. If you look at the word recovery in the dictionary, I don't care what program you're working, what program you're not. If you look at the word recovery in the dictionary, it's to return to health and wellness after suffering illness or injury. So, you know, I do have a dis-ease. I put the hyphen mark in it. I have a dis-ease of self. I'm not comfortable of, within, by, and with myself, you know. So I really start looking at recovery in that aspect. Or again, you know, recovery is a transformative process. Abstinence being only one component. Yes, a great beginning, but, you know, I have to go that step further. And it's really about, you know, improving my health and my wellness, thereby improving my quality of life. Therefore, I take a holistic approach to my holistic well-being, right? Mind, body, and soul. And I've kind of adopted that trifecta program from the jump. You know, when I walked into the rooms on April 22nd, 2017, I was 250 pounds. You know, I was able to, 3 weeks into my program, you know, I heard John C. Maxwell's quote, you know, change something you do daily, change your life. Your success lies in your daily routine. Up until that point, drugging, drinking, working, that had become my daily norm. That was my lifestyle. Today, I've incorporated, you know, a trifecta program, but recovery being my lifestyle, right? So, you know, so I completely overhauled my daily routine because I wasn't doing any mental exercise. I wasn't doing any spiritual exercise. I wasn't doing any physical exercise on a daily basis prior to that, you know. So I completely overhauled that shit. Here I am today, you know, and it's brought me to, and people will often ask me why my handle on social media on my personal page is Alexi Talbot _ healthy XXL, because this is my journey towards healthy living life large, which encompasses all my other journeys, whether it be what was then my weight loss journey, you know, my single motherhood journey, my recovery journey, my transformation journey, my spiritual journey. It encompasses all my journeys, you know. To heal thyself is a healthy self, and that's kind of what I go by. So
All right.
win, brain fit, body fit, spirit fit. You can't have one without the other.
All right. Daniel.
There's so much I could say on this topic, but I guess I'd like to just make my message pretty clear. Pick up where Tom was talking about food, which is, for me, socially and culturally, I was learning bad habits at a very early age. My parents maybe didn't know better, but I learned using food emotionally, and I just carried that on until I was a teenager, and then I discovered substances. So then I was into substances for a very long time, until the age of 46. And it wasn't until really 10 years of recovery, sober, that I was ready to, at that place, spiritually, to take a look at my diet and food. And really the OCB competition helped me to get there quicker, because not only did I get into a community of people that were all like-minded, that were, you know, cared about their body. Probably most of us have a little bit of body dysmorphia. I'm not speaking for everybody, but for myself, it's one of those things that I struggled with for my life. But once I was competing, I had to get very organized. I had coaches. I mean, if it's in your budget, you know, and you can get a coach, it's great, but you don't need to have a coach. You get everything online these days. I got very organized with my food. I learned all about clean carbs. Most important message I would say today is know your numbers. Know your BMR, how many calories do we need, and what is our activity level, and just be aware of why we look the way that we do, why we feel the way that we do, because I did also notice a change in my energy levels from food. So that, I mean, that would be my most important message today, is not only the fitness piece, but the nutrition piece. I guess that's about it.
All right. Danny?
Right. So I'm in the beginning stages of everything here. You know, I'm learning the nutrition more than anything, because I never really practiced eating right. You know, when I was using it and drinking, I had 2 honey buns in Arizona iced tea. That was my diet. You know, that's all I ate. It was $1, $2. That's all I could afford to spend. So it was like, okay, you know. So I got sober, and then I just started eating everything. I started getting money, making money, so I would go out to eat. You know, I had money for cigarettes. I had money for fast food. I had money for stuff to eat. And I just like to eat so much. You know, I just started eating and eating and eating and eating. Then now, you know, I'm realizing, you know, I got very heavy myself. I was almost 250 pounds myself over last year, you know. And so now I'm trying to get into exercising it, because I could work out like a horse. You know, I could work out and keep moving and moving and moving. And I still won't lose weight. And I'm wondering, why isn't that working? Why I'm working out 2 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week. I'm running, I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm still not. And I'm learning to get into the diet part now. I'm learning. I want to learn more about this, because I'm surrounded by people here on this panel that are willing to teach me. You know, because I thought I was alone. You know, I was like, oh, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. And again, it's like recovery, you know, as well. You know, I'm scared to ask. You know, I don't want to ask for help, you know, because they're too busy. You know, they don't want to help someone like me. You know, and that's my mindset. So again, I believe in the spiritual part about this, because I have to change my mind to change my physical plane too. You know, so how it's like to fight my thoughts. I have to physically fight my thoughts. I'm so horrible. I can't do this. How do I get to this point? You know, how do I do that? How do I fight my mental? You know, and I've learned in this process spiritually. You know, I had to develop a higher power of my understanding that I call God. and that I love so much that when I tap in, my thoughts start to change. I start to believe in myself. My higher power tells me you're worthy. You could do this. You are capable of anything in this world if you just walk with me. And so now I'm connecting with other individuals here that I love to, they're doing the same thing as me. They're spiritually, mentally, and physically. And because again, sometimes in the rooms, that I'm part of, people aren't doing it all. And they're missing out. I was missing out on this. I was missing out on connections with people that are doing this and thriving in it and living a great life that, because of what they're doing with eating right, praying right, connecting right. And that's what I want to do, and this is why I'm here today. So I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you, Dan. Corey.
I love bringing people together like this in the sense that everyone's story is so different, but the underlying messages are all the same. So my fitness journey was actually the opposite. I didn't need to go on a weight loss journey. I needed to go on a weight gain journey. So when I got sober in 2012, I was at a treatment facility in Florida. It was a dual diagnosis facility. So half of it was substance abuse, half of it was eating disorders, and I was smack in the middle of both. And I was extremely lucky in that the nutritionist in the eating disorder wing spent a little extra time with me. I took interest in why she was making changes she was, not in the panicked sense of gaining weight, but I was genuinely interested in it. And she shared it with me. But typically for eating disorder recovery, focusing on numbers isn't always the healthiest for people. And I really enjoyed it. And then when I got out of treatment, I went to the rooms. It was my first time in my adult life that I felt like I could truly be myself. I was finally surrounded by a group of like-minded people in a safe space. And I'm sure some of you all can relate that when you're newly sober and you have no place else to go, what does everyone do with your new friends? It's a diner and it's a triple-decker turkey club, night after night after night after night. That I very quickly went from newly sober and excited to not feeling great. And it wasn't even so much about how I looked, it was how I felt. And over the years of going to meetings very regularly, I decided that I wanted a little bit more than just sitting in a church basement for the rest of my life. And that's not to say that the 12 steps didn't give me my life back. Those rooms 100% did. But I wanted a little bit more for myself too. So I started swapping out some of those meetings with some time in a gym. I'm sure they're all going to laugh at me. I spent about 2 years at a retro fitness, walking on a treadmill on an incline, hanging on, leaning back, completely convinced that I was going to build the body of my dreams, and I looked like dog shit after it. And I was buying fitness clothes online. This was like right when Instagram started to get cool. And I remember I ordered from a brand called Forward Uprising, and they sent me a receipt, free shipping. That's how much money I spent, if that tells you anything. And they were shipping the clothes from a town next to mine. So I just reached out to the owner and I said, hey, I live right next door. If it saves you guys the shipping costs, let me come pick it up. And he said, do you lift weights? And I said, no, like I've seen these bikini bodybuilders online. I was like, I'm walking on an incline treadmill and it's not working. And he was like, laughed at me and was like, yeah, that's not going to fucking work. And he said, do you want to come to Lifetime on a guest pass? And I was like, what the fuck's a Lifetime? And I share that story to say that I remember sitting in that gym parking lot, going to meet this complete stranger with a box full of clothes, and I almost didn't go in the gym. Truly terrified, insecure, had no idea what I was doing. And that single scary choice changed the trajectory of my entire life. He was kind enough and took a passion in coaching that he said he would help me get ready for my first bodybuilding show at no cost if I could figure out a way to pay for the gym membership. So that was step one. And over the years, I decided to get out of I was working in the medical field in ophthalmology, and I decided I want to integrate into fitness. And through that, I explored my yoga certification, later personal training. But that single scary decision changed my entire life, personally and professionally. And bodybuilding is something that I think provided me some very much needed framework. I almost think of it like bumpers when you go bowling, that I needed that framework. I'm a structure person. You can probably tell I'm a little type A and a little OCD and a little high strung. I work well with a schedule. It's just how I'm wired. That being said, the nutrition piece can be a slippery slope for people. I'm one of the few, not one of the many, where following a very strict regimented prep diet for a bodybuilding show actually helped my relationship from food. That's not to say don't do it. That's not to say it's bad for everyone. It's just to say as you go into it, take those rose-colored glasses off and just get very honest with yourself through that journey, because it can be a slippery slope. But bodybuilding has shown me what I was capable of. The division I compete in is called fitness, so it's a little different than the others. Third of it's the way we look. 2/3 of it is a 2-minute routine, which is why I like being upside down with you guys over there. I'll show you about it a little bit later. But under all of it has been community. Community through the 12 steps, community through my yoga trainings, community through bodybuilding. And as I've grown and changed and allowed that community to expand and encompass more things, I've gotten into running and high rocks races. It's always been about the community and the people that I've been able to lean on. So,
All right, thank you, Corey. Mr. Barton.
Hey guys, well, I'm sitting listening to you guys, and I'm thinking I got into recovery about like 45 years ago. I was strung out on drugs, and I was shooting puddle water with a syringe, and I filed down on the sidewalks. I was like, I had quite a physical bottom. But I'm just remembering, you say like, when you put down like drugs or alcohol, you pick up food, sex, or money. Well, I was lucky because I picked up all of them. and I remember saying like, I started, initially like, when I started out, it was like the school I went to, like, put me into this like program where they kind of yelled at you, and that didn't work. And meetings, everything was very difficult for me. It didn't take, until I found like working out. I remember telling a friend of mine, I'm like, it's an outside job. It's an inside job. It's like I had to see myself and feel myself, my body changing. That's just what I needed. Like when I was really able to kind of turn my life around in every way, like internally, externally, spiritually, physically, career-wise. All I could do was like work, go to meetings, and work out. Like it was just, I couldn't do anything else. So like I went from about 125 pounds to, in about maybe a year or two, I was weighing 190 pounds, 4% body fat, competing in bodybuilding shows, and just so like, it was compulsive. Like, I mean, I gained 65 pounds in 2 years. This was not like very like balanced, like program, but that's what I needed, and it just, but this is, so with bodybuilding and working out and fitness, like like early on, I remember, I was young and I was like taking on sponsees, and I mean I needed the steps to survive. Initially, it was all about surviving, and I needed the steps. So, like, sponsors came to me, like, what do I do about this? Or can you help me? And I was like, go work out and then come to me. I was like, so I figured, like, for me, the best way for me to help people is I started, and I became a trainer, very successful as a trainer, started my first gym, wound up with a chain of gyms. For me, like, doing something for people, like, giving it away for me was passing along what I knew about, exercise and fitness and nutrition, and doing gyms where people could have something a little better than what I saw out there in the gym world. And to me, that was the most fulfilling way to give it away was gyms and training trainers and doing something, which I thought was really like gave people, a better life. And I believed that then, and I believe that now. And and coming from the world I came from, like it gave me a different perspective than most people who go into the gym business. Like, I came from like kind of like this a very, very different world. This downtown New York, like, street life and then nightlife. And so, my gyms had a different, different approach, a different take, something that was a little subversive and a little,
Anarchy.
with a little anarchy in it. So, and that really this fitness world, this fitness life, like gave me, a career of fulfillment, not just like, a business to make a buck, but, a way to really, connect to people outside myself, even like, To me, this was the most spiritual thing I felt I could do, was to help people connect to the universe through their body, which is a spiritual thing. I remember being in a meeting just saying, I couldn't meditate. I said, some people are made to meditate, some people are made to, empty the ashtrays, so I'll do that, and right now, so this is the longest I've gone with it working out. I have an injury I'm recovering from now, and so I can't work out, and it is, I gotta tell you, it's brutal, but this is giving me a new lesson in life, it's, I remember they used to say, I guess they still say, you don't always get what you want, but you get what you need. And then, you don't always get, you don't always get what you need, but you get what you deserve. And I'm like, you don't always get, I guess, what you want, you don't get what you need, you don't get what you deserve, you just get what you get. And that's what so now I gotta get over something new that I expected. So I gotta say, this is such a great thing, getting together and with people who are incorporating the fitness and working out and exercise and the stuff that we've been talking about into the recovery, because to me, I don't think I could have recovered without the this path that I found, which was just it's been I studied once I got into first I got clean and went back to school. I was in college. I studied psychology, but I minored in nutrition, and I studied nutritional biochemistry and food chemistry and biochemistry, and now I teach trainers about biochemistry, and so that to really understand the nutrition piece for me, you had to learn biochemistry. So I was able to soak up the science knowledge to make trainers that are really able to help people be healthy and transform their bodies. So to me, that's been that has been a big component of my being able to give it away. That's something I got that I felt very lucky and privileged and blessed to get that, to be able to do that and get it. So for me, giving it away is when I wound up, I sold my business, but I had gyms all over the country, and every one of them had trainers that I had trained and worked with, and I think we did a lot of cool stuff for people. I think coming from wherever you guys came from before you got sober, I'm sure it was no walk in the park. So coming from the kind of life that I had, it really gave me such a incredible approach and perspective on the recovery, my life after getting into recovery. Anyway, that's it, man. This goes straight to here with you guys,
So David, thank you so much. I have 14 years sober from alcohol and drugs on the 11th of this year. David is the only person in the room who knew me when I was actively using. So what was I like, David, back then?
You were charming. I was an adorable junkie.
Yeah, he was
lying on the corner peeing on my pants.
in private. He tells me you were such a mess. So, it is possible to transition and to change. And I guess what
Dom has done, it's quite the transition.
And thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Done well.
But I was intimidated when I got started. I remember when I got sober, I was eating a lot, putting weight on, which is fine because I think adding weight is better than a relapse and having a heart attack or overdosing, right? But when about 6 months into my sobriety, I decided I wanted to start to go to the gym. I was really intimidated, and when I went online and I would see people who identified as being in recovery doing things, they were doing marathons, they were doing triathlons, And so for me, I was like, well, I'm never gonna be able to do that, right? And I still I've never done either of those two things. For me, it started with consistency, going to the gym on a regular basis, just lifting, lightweight, not caring what other people might have thought, and then just sticking to it to start to see the biceps pop and the abs, and to see little changes to my body. And that morphed into much, much more. I started competing. But I guess what I think this panel can help people understand is, what are your recommendations for people who are just getting started? Like, what can they do to increase the chances of not only getting started, but sticking to it and seeing benefits in the long term? Why don't we start with Daniel this time?
Getting started with recovery or with
Getting started with integration of fitness. If they're intimidated about going to the gym, if they feel like they're never going to be able to do a competition or some other, triathlon or marathon, those kinds of things.
I mean, I guess I would say it's back to my original message, which is nutrition, to understand what you're eating, why you're eating it. We've all heard HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Sometimes we eat for any of those reasons, and understanding why we eat, when we eat, all the different reasons. It's your genetics, social influences, socioeconomic influences, and understanding all that in terms of nutrition. And then I guess, having somebody work out with you, that's another piece. Like, I did it when I first got into really bodybuilding. I was with my husband, now current husband, and we had a trainer, and we went every Saturday, boom. And we hired a trainer, and we did it every week, and we both lost 45 pounds, so it just so happens I kept mine off, and my husband's gaining his back. But anyway, he's not an alcoholic, so, he doesn't have the 12-step program, and I did. The 12-step program, just the model of recovery, if you're not into the 12-step program, but still the concepts behind it, really will help, getting through the steps, or just basic ideas of recovery that you can incorporate into your life. Even if you choose not to go to a meeting, there are other options out there. Duran and I were talking about there's other ways to get sober. If you don't like the 12-step programs, there's other programs out there. But I would say still, nutrition is the piece that can make you feel good and look good. So know your BMR, know how many calories you need, know how much protein you should be eating, and try to stick to a clean diet. Of course, we're all going to have fun. There is a sensory side of eating, pleasure eating, and then functional eating. Not every meal has to be like, oh, this is good. Like this morning I had in the hotel room, Whole Foods steamed green beans and grilled chicken, just out of the box, eating because I know I needed energy for today. It was a functional eating. Like, after this is over, I'm going to go and cheat. So that would be my message.
Cheat meals are important, absolutely.
Can I chime in?
Yeah, sure.
So one of the things that resonated with me when you said that was getting started isn't necessarily the hardest part. Being patient until it starts to work is. Right. I don't feel like any of us would be sitting in this room if there wasn't a certain aspect of our personality that really liked instant gratification, and I am certainly no different. And fitness, if anything, has taught me to be fucking patient. Like, we say let go and let God in the meetings, but like, I needed to just trust the process and be patient. Whether it's the nutrition or the movement piece, right? You just need to take one step at a time. You joked about marathons as somebody who's newly getting into running, and the two of them are actually literal triathletes and marathoners. And that really is how it goes, though, right? We put these very strange milestones on things like, oh my God, I need to run a mile. You don't. You just need to start with a step or two. And maybe the next day is 2 or 3 or 4. And maybe the next day you're going around the block, and it just slowly builds like that. Being inside a gym is no different, and especially now that we've got everything at our fingertips. Social media wasn't really a thing when I started lifting, but I remember being in same retro fitness with the incline treadmill, and I would just stand in front of a machine, and I would type in leg press and be like, what the fuck is a leg press, and how does it work? Like, there are ways to do it. Cost was a limiting factor for me in the beginning. Like, I was somebody that when I got sober, I moved back with my parents. I didn't have anything. I was lucky I got a job, but I was in no position to be spending tons of money on coaching or a gym membership or any of those things. That I was extremely lucky that the guy that I met from that clothing brand offered to help me. So if anybody wants some support, I am more than happy to try to pay that forward and be that for somebody too. But much like many of us probably had to raise our hands and ask for help to get sober, this journey is no different. There are people there willing to help. It just takes a little bit of courage to raise your hand and ask for it.
They say, what makes one person sober will make another person drunk, will make another person relapse. So, everyone is different, but, one thing, the movement does actually have an effect on the neurotransmitters. And, a lot of this is, neurological, and in order to really, help your body feel better, the brain is mostly in control of that, that part of your, emotional life. And, so, working out to me is, actual, exercise, whether it's, your thing is like running or lifting weights. And you're talking about budget. I mean, that was a great piece of your experience. But with budget, there's gyms you could join for $10 a month, and you could go online and get really good information. If anybody wants to know in particular where to go online to get some good basic foundational stuff for working out and how to work out and what what to do and how much to do and all that. There's a lot of bad information out there, but some good information. So if anybody wants to know about this, I can give you a couple of places to go online. So that's free, and then you can go to a gym for $10-20 a month. So it's really so available today. Anyway.
In my book, I write about how if people go to Starbucks and buy a cup of coffee a day, it's more expensive than most gym memberships are per month. So I think that people find money and they find the budget for what's a priority to them. And this is a priority to us. And you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something because there was a few good things that really resonated with me, and I always like to come back to it. First of all, diet is so much more than what you eat. It's everything that you're consuming, whether it be from the people you surround yourselves with, to what you're listening to what you're watching, to what you're reading. It's everything that you're consuming and feeding your body, right? So that's very important to me. Listen, I was 250 pounds when I came into the rooms of recovery on April 22nd, 2017. Don't think I woke up the next morning and was like, I'm going to start competitively bodybuilding. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even do 2 minutes of freaking cardio back then. I was so unhealthy, so malnourished on every freaking level. I was so unhealthy, mind, body, and soul, And then people always made the joke, but you were such a cokehead. How are you such a cokehead and so fat? You know what? Guess what? The powder diet stops working after a while. Trust me, after 28 years, it does the exact opposite effect. And there is such thing as coke bloat, just with the alcohol, right? I was just so malnourished though. And, I started doing things like practicing yoga, finding a community of women. They weren't in recovery, but finding a community of women. Look, I didn't have any money to go on no Bali yoga retreat, Thailand for a week, whatever. I would have loved to do that, but I didn't have that. Guess what? I didn't even know them. I lived in Gatineau Park in Canada, in the nation's capital. The park was right in my backyard. I took that for granted for 28 years, But being able to just practice yoga and start recognizing the importance of, the opposite of addiction is connection, and whether that be connection to higher self and power, right? And I'll always go into it. Spirituality, God is within you. So guess what? Higher power is higher self at the end of the day. Starting to really incorporate that, connecting to higher self and power, connecting to nature, because I was going to do yoga in the mountains. But more importantly, connecting to community, right? These like-minded women that were really into their spirituality and stuff and going on these day retreats, and really starting to make that connection between breath, mind, body, and soul. And so it went. But guess what? I'm an addict. I have an addict brain. You know what? I lost 100 pounds in 4 months because I became orthorexic. As much as I rid myself of all the toxicity in my life, from the people, places, things, thoughts, right down to the food I consumed, because I was adopting clean living. I was adopting clean living 100, which meant clean eating as well. But I took it there. I had an unhealthy obsession with healthy eating, and I lost 100 pounds in 4 months. That is not healthy. That is not normal. That was addictive behavior. I have that mindset. Bodybuilding, though, really helped me wrap my mind around that. And luckily enough, my first competition coach, I didn't even know there was such a thing as bodybuilding competitions. I had never picked up a weight in my life. I had to actually bulk for my first competition A short year later, I was stepping on stage. Okay, remember I was 250 pounds. I'm 130 pounds, and I'm having to bulk for my first competition as a fitness model. Okay, and but that really started wrapping my head around that because what I got to put an ISO shake in my body? Like I can't do that. Oh my gosh, you know. But my first competition coach was also sober, and she had only used fitness as a pathway to recovery, her recovery. But she was also very faith-based and religious. But I remember her, you know, and it was that thing about instant gratification. Luckily enough, I had her as my coach because I would have taken it there at that time, you know. I definitely would have. But she'd always bring it back to me, you know, stop with that instant gratification. For me, you know, I'll always say, you know, people will ask me if bodybuilding is integral to my recovery. It's intrinsic. It's one and the same. You know, those 12 spiritual principles that I practice in all my affairs, I apply them across all facets of my life. And that's right within my body. Those are the 12 spiritual principles. Those are my foundational building blocks for everything I do today. How I do one thing is how I do everything. So even when I'm approaching a competition, guess what? The outcome, the result, whatever happens on that stage is already predetermined by a power greater than me, right? I just got to keep doing the next right thing and the next right thing in between, and all the things in between. The next right thing is bound to happen. But those 12 spiritual principles, being honest with myself, having the courage, having faith, having, you know, perseverance, the love, right? And I always say it, you know, self-love is the best love. But not only being of service to myself first before I could be of service to anybody else, right? That is huge because I can't give what I don't got, right? So I always display those 12 spiritual principles on myself first before I can go out into the world and display them, right? And then, so I'll integrate those, and now I embody them through my Y12SR, so my yoga 12-step recovery practice. But for me, it's really about, you know, and I go into it, and in the big book, it even says, right, the spiritual life is not a theory, it has to be lived, right? The recovery life is not a theory, it has to be lived. It is absolutely a lifestyle today, you know, my life, my style, and that's how I approach it. But yeah, you gotta, like, there's that slippery slope, and I liked how you mentioned the word movement, because as a certified health coach, like the word exercise can bear very negative connotations, and it's very results driven. But of course, Addict Alex loves the word exercise, right? I am results driven, and I'll go there with it, right? That's why I retired from competitive bodybuilding after 7.5 years. I took it there. It was becoming all consuming. But you know, all it takes is just movement, pleasurable movement for your body. Look, that's how I started. Yoga, pleasurable movement for my body, starting to connect my breath, my mind, my body, my soul on a daily basis, you know? And that really brought me here, and I really like it because I now say I'm going back to basics, you know? Just getting certified in Y12SR and coming back to that, those foundations for me in my early recovery, you know? And that's been huge.
And Danny,
Competitive movement, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Competitive movement has really, there's a lot of impact on the neurology of the brain. Like the neurochemicals actually can make you feel good.
Just Danny, maybe you can speak a little bit about what's because community is a term that we're hearing.
That's
Everyone
humongous for me.
mentioned. Right. So
Humongous
maybe
for
you
me.
could talk about that in the
Absolutely,
context of Sober
absolutely.
Active Scranton.
Because when I first started this journey of exercise, I cheated. You know, I cheated. You know, I hopped on steroids my first year, and I wish I didn't. And it blew me up so big. You know, and again, I got to 260 pounds at that time, and it was humongous. You know, and then I couldn't drop the weight. You know, once I got out, I couldn't drop that weight. That was my first year of it, of doing this stuff. But then I had to get around the right people. You know, not just the people that's coming in and just want to work out and get so big so quickly. Because again, like Alex said, this is a lifestyle. You know, this is something I just want to do for a month. This is just something I want to do for 2 months or 3.
Has to be sustainable.
Right.
Yeah.
This became my lifestyle. So I know because again, I met Henry. You know, Henry was one of my greatest friends. You know, I started this journey with Sober Actives, you know, New York City and Scranton because of I got a partner that was willing to work out like me. I found someone that was willing to go as hard as me. We'd go 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. You know, you want to go work out? No, I need you. All right, let's go. You know, I found that partner. You know, that was willing to push me. and I was willing to push him. You know, we pushed each other so much, and it didn't matter how tired we were. It didn't matter how, you know, I found that community, and then it brought me here, you know, to meet everyone here. And it's like, again, I want to keep growing with this and keep going and get to know everyone else's journey, because again, it's like anything else. I can't do this alone.
Yeah.
You know, I'm stuck by myself, you know, and step one, my life sucks when I try to run it by myself. You know, I'm horrible at running my life, and I'm horrible at running my own fitness journey as well. So I need guidance and help through everyone else.
All right, so we're like a little tight on time. So what I wanted to do was go around quickly your most important recommendation from each of the panel members to people who are out there listening to this conversation for them, and then we're going to go to questions and answers from people that are.
Yeah, I'd love to know what people are interested in knowing, but you know, I mean, you know, you're reminding me about just like when I first got sober, and you know, look, I couldn't connect to people. I was trying to connect to people. There's community in the rooms that, you know, I could connect to, but also like with bodybuilding, there was this also community. You know, before this event here, I called up somebody I know who's like this huge professional bodybuilder, and I just thought it'd be good to have him on the stage here talking. And I said, "Would you come to this thing?" He was like, "Drop what he's doing and come," you know, because there's this community bodybuilding, it's sort of like brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever. And anyway, he was out of the country, so he could come. And like this, you know, there's this real bond. Like also, like just finding community, like in the gyms, like just just people you can really bond with and work out with, and that's like an amazing thing. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know where people are at, but you guys can.
Corey?
I think community is that piece, right? And there's a very big difference between a healthy fitness journey, doing absolutely nothing, and trying to be a world-class bodybuilder, right? It's a scale just like anything else. And I feel like everyone's at some point, why they were speaking today, spoke about community. And there's something to be said, even if it happens more by accident and less out of intent. Being in an environment like the one we're in, the odds of you finding healthier people to be around is a lot higher, right? Much like when we step into the rooms, if you get pulled into the right crowd, you tend to be fairly successful. And if you get pulled into the right crowd, everyone kind of dips out together, and it usually doesn't end pretty well. The fitness scene is no different, right? You spoke about finding the right people. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Anyone that's confident in their fitness journey in a gym can look intimidating. Nobody that's taken the time to work on themselves has a higher than thou attitude, even if their physiques may look that way. Anyone that's confident in themselves in the gym wants everybody to succeed and is willing to help. Just find that little bit of courage to ask for it.
My number one recommendation is to have confidence in yourself, that you can do anything you put your mind to. I believe anyone who can get sober has a superpower. Anyone who can survive addiction can do anything they put their mind to. But I think fundamentally we can be our own worst enemies. So get out of your head and believe in yourself. And lifting weights and going to the gym will help give you that confidence.
Yeah.
So that's my number one recommendation.
Mine is, again, I had to tap, like you said, a power. I had to find a power greater than myself to tap into as well to keep me going. Because without that, you know, I'm stuck in my mind. You know, I can't move forward. So I have to tap into something to give me the confidence and even say hi to you. You know, because
Right.
you know, you're too intimidating to see me. So but if I ask my higher power to be, listen, can you help me to at least say hi to this guy? Can you take me out of myself and give me the courage to? Because without that, I can't do anything with myself. You know? So again, I'm grateful that I found that higher power in myself to have the courage to even reach out to you and everyone else here.
Yeah, we're good. We're glad to have you.
Absolutely.
Daniel.
Yeah, what I'm hearing here really resonates. So I'd just like to say, I guess finding joy and gratitude in the moment of everything, like we mentioned about even exercise, like in the exercises that you like, just when you're doing them, think about what feels good about it, and then try to work that into your workout rather than, oh, I got to do another rep and I got to do another this, whether it be breathing or, you know, the lighting in the room. Like this gym is fantastic from sensory stuff that you can feel. I mean, just find the joy in the moment. Also being open and willing to changes as we recover. Because, for example, make it real quick, when I stopped drinking, and I used to go out with my friends eating and drinking and getting drunk, when I stopped drinking, what was the next level? I found still pleasure in going out to dinner. eating the food and finding the different foods that I liked. And then as I got more well with working out and competing, I started, who knew I would ever like sweet potato? I mean, I hated sweet potato when I was a kid. I ate rice and beans and French fries and all that stuff, you know, that good stuff. And now I actually like quinoa, sweet potato. So I actually like it. It's not like, oh, I got to eat this, you know.
It's true.
So just be open and willing to changes as we get well.
Alex, final word.
I guess my final words would just really be again, you know, being clean and or sober is not the goal. The goal is actually to love ourselves enough to live lives unaddicted, to live lives that we don't have to escape from. You know, self-care is self-love is self-respect, self-respect is self-discipline. And once you have those four under your belt, they're like true higher self and higher power. And once you can tap into the source within and your potentialities and capabilities as a human being, we are amazing human beings if we allow ourselves to be. The moment I came to believe in something greater than myself is the very moment I started to come to believe in my very self.
Okay. Awesome. So we have a few minutes for questions and answers before we go downstairs to the Shrooms Cafe. And if you placed an order for a smoothie, it will be ready for you when we go downstairs to the Shrooms Cafe, which is downstairs on the first floor. So are there any questions from anybody for any of the panelists? Stephen.
I appreciate that you guys are here. Back when I got sober in Boston, fitness was the only thing that got me through it, but nobody else in my fellowship. It was a gay fellowship. Nobody else in my fellowship valued fitness the same thing I did. And a few of my friends and I, what was that?
Nobody what?
Nobody valued fitness as a means to recovery as much as I did. They were hardcore 12-steppers. That was the only thing that was ever going to work. There was no other facets to it. It was just me too. A few of my friends and I tried to get a meeting going that was based on fitness, right? Because we had diverse meetings in Boston, but it didn't really have traction. So I appreciate that you're all here because it's what did it for me. Going back to people getting started, I work in membership sales here at Gym U. I hear newbies all the time, super scared to come in. This is not a gym for beginners all the time. There's a lot of big boys that work out here. Just like in the rooms, when my first sponsor told me, find the person with the most time. This guy was like 100. Go up to him, get his number. That is what I did. When I started coming to the gym after the Planet Fitness phase, when I got to like a real gym here in New York, before this one, I was the biggest boy with the cutest face, I could get my hands on. I asked him to help me put some meal plans together. The kid put some meal plans together for me. And that's how it started. I got a personal trainer once I got some more money. And then I switched jobs to here, and I have a personal trainer here. It's just a journey, step by step by step. And there really is no difference between 12-step recovery and a fitness journey. I mean, it's the same steps that you take throughout. It's the same principles. It's the same suggestions. Also, fellowship can make you really fat. I just want to.
Real quick, you know, when I first came around, first going to the gym, these guys, they just took me under their wing and showed me, passed along what they knew, and it was so special. And they weren't people in recovery, but then I also, that was a separate thing, but it was a way to connect. It was amazing. I still feel that love. And then in the rooms, there's a meeting in New York called Midnight. This is infamous room, it's a down and dirty meeting. It's been there forever. It's it was an after hours club before it was AA. And these people, when I came in, I used to do drugs in the bathroom. I was shooting up in the little bathroom they had there. Nobody ever said a word don't come back. They took me out for after coffee, and I would fall, pass out with my head in the plate of food or whatever, and they just kept bringing me there and bringing me until until I could do it, And it was that love, man, that acceptance, and that connection. There are people I still, that I'm still friends with, and that was 30 years ago.
And Stephen, you're welcome to join Sober Active NYC and help us develop programming here, and then also the larger movement, which is obviously in the room today. Are there any other questions from the floor? Sure.
Just mention your book again, the name of it, and what do you guys do in New York?
Okay, Sober Active NYC. Okay, so my book is Spiritual Adrenaline. It's a lifestyle plan to strengthen and nourish your recovery. And basically what it does is it takes the 12 steps and the Eightfold Path of Buddhism. It integrates exercise and nutrition and spiritual recommendations, spiritual tools into the 12-step program. And it has a chapter it's all broken out, chapter inspirations, and it'll help walk you through, especially if you're a beginner, just recommendations on what you should avoid, food-wise, and then also exercise-wise. Because if you have, for example, many people come into recovery with damage to the liver from drinking. So I go through some of the recommendations on different types of fitness and how they impact different diseases, like, for example, that are common in people in early recovery. It's an evidence-based book, so everything is cited to peer-reviewed studies. It's not my opinion. And, again, David wrote the foreword, and you can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And then Sober Active NYC, what we did when they closed the liquor stores during the pandemic, they kept the liquor stores open during the pandemic, and they closed the gyms. We started doing workouts in Central Park on a weekly basis, and we got capacity number of people for all the workouts. People were thrilled. They had a place to work out. There was a workout with a 12-step meeting that followed. And so that's how it started during the pandemic. And what we're doing now is we had a run in January. We had a spin class in March. By the way, the gentleman who did the run, who led the run here in January, is running across America. His name is Caleb McCoy. It's called the Transcontinental Run. The Sober Active Foundation, which is Sober Active NYC, is a sponsor of the run. We had donated money to that. He left San Diego 35 days ago. To this morning, I just checked the update. He crossed the Tennessee line. And this is the guy.
He's Forrest Gump.
He's ending. He'll be ending in another 2 weeks. But Caleb McCoy is someone who, he's been here. We brought him here to New York because he's someone who was homeless. He was a multiple convicted felon. He was not be able to stay sober for more than, he was constantly getting locked up, constantly drunk, and shooting drugs. And now he has a sober living house on the Cherokee Nation Reservation, Eastern Band of Cherokee in North Carolina. And he has a sober house. He has a running program where he works with people in recovery. And he's running across America, and he crossed the Tennessee line this morning. So this is an expanding movement within the recovery community. Leaders are here. Sober Active Canada is here. Sober Active Scranton, Corey in New Jersey, David Barton, Daniel. So it's a growing movement. So if you're interested, let me know. We'd love to have you help put events together and drive impact by getting people to the events. So listen, thank you to the panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you.